Which one is it here? Is it the
V2,
I think it's open.
it should be the open one.
Okay, you can up and down and away you go. Now, please, Steve.
I'll try this again. Howdy, I'm Steve Metzger, KK7RHH. I'm a geologist who mostly studies how the land responds to weather, whether it's wind, water, glaciers, and so forth. But I'm going to talk about Nevada's fundamental character and why we have a lot of earthquakes.
This.
Okay, so Nevada's got all kinds of beautiful terrain and such. This particular photo is from just north of Battle Mountain. And everyone has, I think, their different favorite time of the year and so forth.
Quick, you want me to do this for you?
Oh, you got to touch that one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Try that. If not, I'll do that.
but a main thing about Nevada is that we have a lot of very linear ridges and very linear valleys. And the valleys are narrow, relatively speaking, and often there's a dry lake bed in the middle of it. And that's because we're in the Basin and Range province. In Germany, where a lot of structural geology was figured out, it's called Horst and Graben. But basically, it's that the state has been stretched apart, and blocks of rock alternately have dropped. So there'll be a block that doesn't drop, which will end up being a ridge, and then the block that does, that's a basin and range. And it's actually extends into a number of the surrounding states, but it's almost solely the nature of our geology here in Nevada. This is also why we get a lot of mineral deposits. Basically, a lot of hot water cruises across deposits in the countryside and follow up along the faults until they get cool enough toward the surface that they start precipitating out of solution and build up all kinds of deposits. There's a partial list: barite, clay, copper, diatomite, dolomite, gold, gypsum, lapidary and gemstones, limestones, lithium compounds, magnesium, molybdenite, pearlite, etc. Lots of stuff in Nevada. And it actually, we've gotten something like $1/3 trillion of gold out of Nevada, over $350 billion. Nice gold nugget up in the upper corner. These are very dangerous. If you find one, do not touch it. Call me. I will pound and handle it for you. It's a professional thing. Most gold is like the upper right corner, where it's dispersed amongst a background rock. And in fact, that one is a really good version. I'm not a gold geologist, but if you can actually see little specks of gold, that's a really lucrative ore. Usually it's even far less than that, and it's still worth processing. In the lower left, that's an abandoned mine near Berlin, which is near the ichthyosaur fossil. And then the Carlin mine is the big open pit. In fact, that type of geology that led to finding so much gold in the Carlin Trend is a type location. And now there's a couple of other places in the world, one of the big ones being China, where they have what they call Carlin gold. So to all of us humans walking around on the surface, or sort of like human, but those are undergrad assistants. There's that in fact is east of the Sand Mountain. There's a little road sign that says there's a fault, and you go a couple of miles down the dirt road, and there it is. These fault scarps are often, if they're really fresh, they're shiny. They have little streaks on them and stuff. But just about anywhere in Nevada where you see a little terrace step down by a few feet, almost always that's a fault. and they are all over this valley. This is in the center of the state, this side of Austin, and you can see the fault scarp all along the front row, the front range of that basin. And the picture from below is the same one seen from the sky. Anytime you see a straight line in the natural earth, there's a real good chance that that's a fault. The alluvial fans, which are kind of like a dry land delta that come out of the mountain range, are usually a good indicator of faults in the area also. And that's because the block of rock in the middle, the basin, continues to drop every once in a while. And in fact, they've been dropping and sediment has been flushing in there for millions of years. In some cases, the sediment in the valley floor can be up to like 2 miles thick of sediments. And the block has dropped that deep, and the mountain ranges continue to slowly erode and dump that sediment into the valley. Because the blocks don't drop consistently and evenly, if there's any kind of water in the area, whether it's a river or a lake, it'll hug one side because of the valley, because the blocks drop unequally. And so in both cases, the in the left picture, Washoe Lake, and in the right picture, Walker Lake, they're both hugging the west side of the valley. And there's usually a gradual beach coming in from the opposite side to the side that's going to be the deepest water. So all of these are indications that we've got geologic activity happening all over the place. And when you plot this stuff up on the left side, you see that the blue dots are actually fault locations, the focus of a fault, and the red lines are the movement sideways. And then the picture on the right shows that you need to be honest about this, folks. Nevada has a lot of faults. And we have the dropping sort of blocks going down are represented on the right by the blue lines. The sideways slip faults are represented by red lines. And the yellow is when sometimes a rock gets pushed up over another. And when all these are put together, this is the hazard map for the United States. And you can notice a major red pathway up along the western side of Nevada into Reno. We are in a Category 5 earthquake hazard zone, 5 out of 5. We're at the same hazard level as the San Andreas Fault along the California coast. So you can see that there's a lot of fault potential on the western United States. Now, when FEMA takes a look at this sort of stuff and put some numbers to it, they try to figure out how expensive an earthquake would be in certain regions and sort of allocate resources in advance and after the fact to those places. On the left picture, you can see that Washoe County is considered an orange level of hazard, which is fairly high. On the right picture, you'll see a whole lot more red. And the difference in these pictures is that earthquakes and their disastrous results are easier for governments to pay for because of resources and allocating and switching things around and partnerships than the right side picture, which is where our costs come in. So as an individual, earthquakes are much more expensive to us individually than they are to our communities because we're on our own. So having a certain amount of preparedness for this might lessen some of our costs. So there are 4 basic things that the FEMA, et cetera, recommends, and all the following is some FEMA guidelines. Look around your place, identify hazards, and secure your property, basically, so things don't fall over and break, don't fall over on you, or don't fall over and blow up. Create a disaster plan, organize your supplies, and consider some financial arrangements to deal with that. So securing your space, earthquakes often lead to localized fires. So a whole lot of this disaster preparedness is the same no matter what kind of disaster we face. So preparing for earthquakes means you're probably prepared for a lot of other problems that could befall you. So there is a program in town called Living with Fire on how to safeguard your home. Something like 70 or 80% of house fires in a rangeland fire are because embers get in through soffits and other vents in your roof. So the big recommendation is put screening, the soffits that come with the screening, metal screening soffits, and that cuts down on a huge problem. And then all the kindling that's around your house, dead vegetation and leaves on the roof, take care of that. Fuel of all sorts should be stored as possible away from the house. And if you have to leave them in the house, you should put them in the garage, the farthest away from the residence. Same with lithium batteries and such. Have fire extinguishers around, including at the pass door to the garage. As far as protecting records, by photographing and scanning things, and not only having a copy secured, maybe in a little fireproof safe in your home, make a copy and leave it with a friend or family so that they have your data. And that's pretty important. Contact information, evacuation maps, and all that kind of stuff you can keep on your phone and print out copies and put in your car, and have some cash available, because if ATMs go down and you need cash in order to get a motel room or something, you would have some. In terms of securing your space, keeping things from falling over is a big deal. So give that some thought and bolt things down. And quick little story, a fellow grad student at UNR, when I was going through, was a Renaissance buff, and he had a couple of clay swords right over his bed. They weren't sharp, but they were heavy, and he was a geologist, so we just owned him. Don't have heavy, sharp things over your bed unless they're really screwed down, not just simple nails in the drywall, but screwed down into the studs so they don't fall and hurt you. And the same with your kids' rooms and anything that's tippy and so forth. Getting a disaster plan together, figuring out routes as to where you would have to go if you need to deal with a fallen bridge and so forth, coming up with an assembly point, packing a go bag for everybody, having those laminated emergency contacts in wallets or knapsacks, a charged USB power supply, and a lot of people aren't aware that an old cell phone that's off subscription still will work on 911. That's all it works on, or you can call your phone company. Two things: 911, call the phone company and get back on paying money to them. But if you just have this old cell phone, I would strongly consider having one in your car, for example, and having a 12-volt charger and having emergency access. Okay, so the main thing is, during an actual earthquake, if you're indoors, stay there. They want you to think about the drop, cover, and hold on technique as something we should all learn. If an earthquake hit right now, under here would be a great place, and these tables are pretty solid. The idea is that in a serious quake, no one's walking or running anywhere. You're going to fall down. So you might as well get down on the ground the moment the quake starts happening so you don't fall over and hurt yourself. And now you're a medical problem as well as a badly damaged city. So stay where you are, get down low, hold on to heavy cover and stay there. Windows and fireplaces and heavy furniture that could tip over are all dangerous. And and you're not going to be able to move very well. So if you're outside, get into the open, away from things that could tip over and fall on you. If you're driving, that's actually one of the best things because your car has got all kinds of suspension flex, but you still want to gently, prudently pull over and stop, and don't stop under anything that could fall over, bridges, overpasses, trees, and light posts. If you're in the mountains, just be aware that things uphill of you could get dislodged and come down on you. And if you're near the ocean, the moment you hear an alert, head immediately uphill or up a very strong building. There are oodles of photos and movies online about things that have happened in Japan and so forth with tsunamis. And if you see the ocean withdraw and suddenly all the water goes away, or if you even hear weird noises like a wave of water rushing through the air can actually make noise. If the ocean acts weird, get uphill and stay there until you hear an all clear from the authorities, because aftershocks are common and more could be on their way. And lastly, when the shaking stops, calmly leave the building, assemble with your group near the pre-agreed area. Hopefully you practice this once or twice. You should wear sturdy shoes and gloves if you can, because a lot of stuff will be broken. In your kitchen, for example, if you don't have locking kitchen cabinets, all the dishes could be broken shards on the floor. So some people build little toe rails in their cabinets and shelves to keep that from happening. But basically the world's going to be a little torn up. So you check for injuries, you check for hazards, all kinds of damaged stuff that could be a problem if lines are ripped and so forth. If you're going to use a generator, absolutely don't use it indoors or even in the garage. You want to make sure that there's plenty of ventilation. Carbon monoxide poisoning is a common disaster that comes with generator use improperly. Same goes for stoves and any outdoor cooking gear. So we probably won't, most of us don't, I think, live in huge buildings here in Reno. Fortunately, wood structures flex better than brittle ones and are more resilient. I was the first earthquake I was ever in was in Buffalo, New York, and I was teaching an earth science class. And after that class, everyone said, "Mr. Metzger, you're the geologist. What about the earthquake?" I said, "What?" The building I was in was a small wooden building about the size of this room, and it flexed enough. And the joke around school, of course, is that I was droning on and didn't notice the earthquake. And my students were, of course, passed out, and so they didn't notice the earthquake. So it was all good. Anyway, we've been dealing with earthquakes since before our species came about. Most of us will get through them, and more of us will get through them if you do a little thinking in advance about how things might fall over and break in your world, and to have standard sort of disaster resilient supplies. All of these agencies have tons of information and would be happy to go into much better detail. They have lists on how to prepare for certain special needs. If you have pets or children or people who have medical issues and so forth. And so any of these folks could help you with more information. And that's all I got.
Watch your foot, watch your foot.
Okay, we got more.
We got more.
Let me find that.
Oh. Wrong one.
I know that. Hold on a minute. This one, right?
Yeah, that one.
Tell them you're going to do more.
For you,
I don't think we have.
I'm,
Your what?
no, go ahead.
Okay. You're on.
Good morning, everybody. As a follow-up to what Steve just talked about, if we have the major disaster, all of us here in amateur radio would probably like to help, but Nevada has recently changed to an Oxcom state. So what does Oxcom mean? Well, go behind Barry here so I can spit on him, but forgive the word chart, but DEM is basically put together a program based on DHS and FEMA and our friends in the federal government that encompasses amateur radio, RACI, CERT, CB radio, all forms of amateur communications. Okay, and it's considered a primary emergency communications asset, and it's based by qualified amateur radio personnel. So in northern Nevada right now, we have about 9 people. And in Washoe County, right here in our area, myself, John Phillips, and Ray Foster are the 3 state certified Oxcom volunteers. So what that means is that in the REOC, when we get back in there, you're going to see a chair that says Oxcom. And if we have a big one, one of our butts will be in that chair, and we'll be coordinating amateur radio communications. Barry, if you can flip it for me. Next page. Okay, so what would they be asking us to do in an emergency? Well, certainly Red Cross or evacuation shelter communications. And I know Red Cross likes to think they have their own crew of radio personnel. And there are some of us here in the Valley who participate in the Red Cross exercises, but we'll help there. We could be asked to forward information or requests to the REOC. We could be manning hospital radio rooms. There's a bunch of us in areas who basically own each hospital, and they would be there if need be. There might be other non-emergency requests. There could be a place where people are gathering. Maybe it's not a shelter, but they need some communications there, some coordination. We can help with that. We can get requests back and forth. Other ancillary communications, damage reports, photos, certainly sending radiograms or emails out. All of us should, be familiar with how to do that. Aries uses WinLink, as does FEMA. So, and Oxcom doesn't replace RACIs or Aries, but we're certified and we have additional support. For example, Tom down in DEM could hand me a public service radio and say, go here and help. So, it just depends on what the need is and how that's going to come to play. So last slide, Barry. Okay, so how can you help as a ham radio operator, right? So first of all, become a member of Washoe Areas Races. We have a small core people who are always active, but we can use people who want to get active. So you do your training, you get the task book signed off, you attend meetings and events, and be an active part of Washoe Areas. Participate is the big deal. In an emergency, you and your family come first. Okay, unless you're a first responder in this room, you and your family come first. Okay, all right, and then also please stay off the repeater system. It's going to be a mess anyway, but you can help by not getting, tying up the repeater. The other big deal is do not self-activate. Okay, Aries and CERT, we have our own standard operating procedures that we're going to follow. All right, for everybody else, just stay home. If we're calling down the phone list or need help, we'll get in contact with you. And we're not going to ask anybody to anything that you're not properly trained and certified for. Okay? We're not gonna send Chuck into a burning building in his gym shorts and a t-shirt because he's not trained and certified to go in there. All right? And then just, yeah, and just the first 72 hours at least of a major emergency, it's going to be pretty chaotic. You know, communications may be down. We may not even have the repeater system up. It may have gone down if it's that bad. The 800 system probably down. You know, it's just going to be chaotic. So the best thing you can do is take care of yourself and your family and your neighbors, and let things settle out. And if you are an Aries member and you're needed, you'll be contacted, or you can follow our standard operating procedures. And this goes for, you know, Steve and I are in CERT. You and your family come first. Nobody's going to yell at you if you say, hey, I'm home because my wife is injured and I can't leave. That's fine. You got to take care of yourself and your family. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for the geology and the earthquake piece. Thank you, Doug. If anybody is interested to know more about ARES, which is Amateur Radio Emergency Services, just come and talk to Doug and he'll fill you in. Or Arlen. It's a different organization. It's not SNARS, but we do a lot of stuff together. I'll just say that I never really thought, coming out of the Bay Area, I never really thought much about earthquakes here. And about 2006, there was a series of them, and I was shocked. You know, they were different in the Bay Area, so it could happen anywhere. I was down in the Bay Area seeing my sister 5 or 6 years ago and getting out of the shower, and in the foyer there, where the bathroom is. And an earthquake happened, and it was the weirdest experience I ever had. I swear I saw the ripple. Now, did I see the ripple energy? Did I see the actual wall move? I don't know, but it was really weird. So we got a lot of great resources here, and thank you both Steve and Doug. I was unaware how earthquake prone we are. I was shocked when you said that we're equivalent to San Andreas Fault. So just be aware. So these guys are going to be here for some amount of time. Thank you for being here. And by the way, if you have an idea of a speaker or a topic for an upcoming meeting, just come and grab me. So this completes the presentation for July the 6th, 2024. Thanks, everyone.